you for that very nice introduction. Actually, having had that introduction, I'm not going to read you some poetry. I'm going to read you, well actually I am. I'm going to read you a bit of prose, 2 pieces of prose first. I thought this is a Ukrainian event, so I'm not going to give some of my poetry. I'm going to give you 2 pieces that or 3 pieces that I've been asked to translate from Ukrainian, so they're very new pieces. And the first 2 pieces are by a soldier and an activist, and his soldier called Yuri Gudymenko, and he was almost fatally injured when he was caught on a mine, but yet fortunately has recovered. So the first piece is about his explanation of the war for the West. So I'll turn around here, the light's better. Okay. Yesterday, I tried to find a metaphor for our war that foreigners would really get, and I just found it. It's Harry Potter. I'm not just talking about how we're now on the side of good and light and our enemies clearly fit the textbook description of absolute evil, besides being rather primitive and stupid. No, I'm talking about something else. Do you remember how Rowling's book make it clear Voldomort created his own arch-enemy, an arch-enemy which ultimately killed him? Voldemort had a choice, and he made it, as he tried to kill Potter when still a child. Then he painstakingly pursues Potter for 325 chapters, and that's 7 books. And in each book, he only manages to nab wimps. So for the grand finale, he decides to go for a special operation to de-Harry Potterify the magical community, which of course leads to his own demise from an overdose of magic in his system. Meanwhile, Harry Potter himself undergoes a transformation from, I don't know who he is, to, I'll kill you, Beach, even if I die myself. So, Vladimir Putin harried Ukrainians just as diligently throughout his reign, each time turning another group of Ukrainians into enemies of Russia. In the 90s, the vast majority of Ukrainians sincerely considered Russians as brothers and didn't even think of hating them. But after the Orange Revolution, when Putin openly supported Yanukovych, a significant but still not critical part of the population began to change their minds. That number increased sharply after bloody winter of 2014, and even more so after the occupation of Crimea and the start of the war in the Donbass. But even then, you couldn't say that the majority of Ukrainians hate Russians and see Russia as their mortal enemy. And now you can. After the first rockets on the 24th of February, all polls say the same thing. With this final attempt, Voldomort has completed the Ukrainian nation. So completed that the vast majority of Ukrainians clearly understand that, as in the prophecy, someone will die at the hand of another because they are not destined to live together. Yes, it's either them or us. There is no third option. And now, for the first time in history, not just some Ukrainians understand this, but most, and this will last forever, I hope. And they did it deliberately, but the outcome will be decided between us. So, we have become the greatest enemy of the Russians. They have become our greatest enemies. They started the war, and we will win it. And they did it deliberately. But the outcome will be decided between us. Because What was incomprehensible to us was clarified by rockets in Bucha and in Mariupol. We saw everything. We will never forget. Oh yes, we are 10 millions of very angry Ukrainian citizens. Harry Potter and Voldomort, as rolling stresses, had so much in common. But one looked scary and invincible, and the other small and helpless. But each made his choice. One started the war, and the other won it. Not without loss, not without victims, not without betrayal and destruction. And we will win too. Because after Bucha, the planet became too small for both of us. Avara Kedavra, bitch! So this is another piece by, as I said, this man is a soldier, and his heroism is quite extraordinary. So take this from it. This is not from me. This is from Yuri Gudymenko. What did you dream about as a child? I dreamed of becoming a hero. For some reason I had a rather strange idea. I dreamt I was standing on some barricade with a pistol. Why a pistol and not an assault rifle? I had no idea. And I was waving a huge blue and yellow flag. That's why a pistol. It'd be awkward to wave a flag otherwise. So, just how I got to the barricade. I didn't make it to my childhood dreams. After killing off my enemies, I suppose, some children's dreams are like that. Concrete and non-concrete at the same time. Now, I'm no longer a child, and I never became a hero, but I saw others become heroes, at least for me. I saw a woman crossing the river near Irpin in winter, under the destroyed bridge on shaky platforms, and with almost no belongings, just a huge cage holding 2 ferrets. She could have taken far more of her own things, more of what she'd worked so hard for. But she chose differently and saved 2 small lives. For me, this is heroism. And I saw a thin boy in his 20s standing in a long queue at a truck to get his hands on a machine gun early in the war. I saw he had never held a weapon, but there was stubbornness in his eyes. The following day, I saw him at training. He trained hard. He behaved like a hero. He was a hero. And I've seen women pulling their husbands up from absolute darkness, psychologically crushed after injuries and amputation. I've seen a man pulling out the wounded under fire. I've seen fellow sappers from the State Emergency Service grey with fatigue. I've seen volunteers making the impossible possible. I've seen saboteurs whose operations will never make it into Hollywood movies because no one will believe they actually happened. I saw the everyday heroism of ordinary people. Heroism that makes ordinary people extraordinary. And they all have one thing in common. None was born a hero. None decided to become a hero. None wears a hero t-shirt. But their actions are the actions of heroes. And you know what else? I know that while reading this text, you thought of some acquaintance or relatives, some close person, not about yourself. But I'm sure that someone reading this text thought of you. This is a poem, so your promised poem, so you just if you get one. And this is by Ukrainian poet Tetiana Vlasova. And she's writing in the voice of a soldier who has been asked why he doesn't have conversations with the enemy and why it just doesn't make sense to negotiate at this point. So, I'll do this on the phone because I can't. It's too dark to read on that. Give me a second. Okay. Don't talk to the enemy at all, he says. Don't look for his humanity. It's easy not to when you're drenched in blood and smoke's calamity, when everything that we have built has become so fragile utterly. No, I don't have time to look for the human in my enemy. I certainly didn't choose, he says, to bring this winter on me, but the snowflakes are falling here as the dying fall around me. Falling without end, falling on unstoppably. Why on earth at this time should I converse with the enemy? Why should I even try to understand his mentality? Better to drive him far away so that he can see things plainly. I do not want the enemy to love me or respect me. I want him to be shit scared and not hurt my children cruelly. It's easy, really easy, he says, when there's death all around you. Look in the eyes of the enemy. Look long and hard and true. Look within for all the lost lives and every ravaged city. So he says, I'll do my job and the snow will melt before me. And just before I finished, I was going to write a poem for this, but I haven't been able to, and I'm sure, actually, I don't think it's right necessarily to do so, but I'll just tell you the story behind the poem. I have a young friend who's a medical student in Odessa, and she tells me about what goes on in the apartment blocks when they have blackouts, which are very, very frequent, and the lifts stop. And Ukrainians, as all those here will know, have quite a sense of humour and a sense of practicality. And so they've stocked up the lifts with an emergency box for when the lifts stop. And they're caught in the dark in the lift. And so basically they put in things like chocolate bars and things like that, and candles, and being Ukrainians, they also put in condoms as well. So my friend Maria said, well, what would you suggest we put in this emergency box? And it conjured up quite a few ideas that actually we should have an emergency box of humanity. And she suggested, I asked her what she wanted, she said, well, I would put in a poetry book, because that for me is a symbol of hope. And it's like Pandora's box. You have chaos taken out, and the last thing is a symbol of hope. And that's why poetry is important. It's the symbol of hope. I have a young friend in Kyiv. She's 13-year-old. She's an actress for the Pro-English Theatre Company. And she sent a powerful message too, which Hannah will have seen to the Off West End Theatre Awards. And her closing line was that war shouldn't make art weak, war should make it strong, and I kind of totally believe that. And what she's doing now, she's also done an interview with Straits Times yesterday, in which she said she's working on her English language skills, which are already quite incredible for a 13-year-old, because language for her is the weapon by which we win the war. And I just thought, yeah, that's true. Poetry and language and communication is how we get through this. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.